It's an interesting industry because there really are 10 ways to do everything. I don't ever claim to be right. This is my best practice. People are working with you because you give them a sense of confidence that you can execute on this project. The reality is, no matter what process, I'm hired for the unknown.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Designing Tomorrow. In today's episode, we have guest Anthony Carrino. Anthony is an amazing designer who's an even better human being. He is so genuine, and I'm excited for you to hear what he has to say about how he began his career with a degree in entrepreneurship all the way to working for his father, and then with a decade experience in HGTV, now to building his own series about renovating a firehouse in New Jersey and a stone house in the Catskills. This episode is jam-packed with lots of information. We're going to cover process, tools that he's actually using, and how he approaches brand partnerships as someone who can do that. So I'm really excited for you to learn more about Anthony and his process. So let's dig in. Hello, Anthony. Welcome.
What's up? What's up? Always good to see you, Mary Beth.
I'm so excited to have you here. All right. There is a lot to cover. You are a very important person. And I've been able to speak with you in the past, which has been so nice.
Super fun.
And I've heard like glimpses of your story and how you got here, you know, from HGTV to the Build TV, which you produced yourself. You've got this rich history. So for those that don't know you or want to know more, tell us about just the early parts of your career and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, sure. So Anthony Carrino, hey, everybody. Builder, designer, contractor, and developer. So early parts of my career, how early are we talking? I guess, so going back to college briefly, like I went to business school. I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps. He was an entrepreneur. And I think the most appealing part about all of that to me was like, he was always at my soccer games, at my lacrosse games. We went on family vacations. Did I see him working on vacation? Sure. But I also saw the freedom he had to kind of do the things he wanted to do. So like, I was like, well, I want to do whatever it is that he does so that I have those same freedoms. What exactly that meant, I didn't really know. And why I started kind of at college is because that's where I found the creative side of my brain, interestingly enough, at business school. And that is in the sense that I got some job at the campus center, like welcoming people through or answering questions. I think I lasted half a shift. I was like, no, am I doing this for $7 an hour? Like there's something else I can be doing. So short version of my long story here is that I taught myself how to design websites. So back in the days of like Dreamweaver and Front Page, and I was no code guy. I just figured out how to hack it together. And when I reflect back on it, what I was really figuring out was like the design part of it. Like I'm no coder. Like I love technology and I can hack apart some little basic HTML stuff. But what I found that I really loved was like laying the website out, making sure everything was like easy to find and navigate, the UI UX of it all, which really translates into one of my favorite aspects of my job today, which is space planning, like everything in its right place. If we were to take a little Radiohead lyric there or song title. But like it's something that I found that I just had this innate ability for. So, you know, through college, I look back after it all because like I never had to call my parents for money. Like I was never asking them to pay for it. You know, they paid for college. I'm not pretending I did all this on my own. But I look back and over 3.5 years of web design and 30 plus clients, I did like 75 grand worth of business while I was a full-time college student and paid for all my extracurricular activities along the way. And I think most importantly, it's the thing that really was the real catalyst for the design part, the creative part of what I do. So after college, my father and I had decided to buy a building in Hoboken and renovate that and convert it into condominiums. Not necessarily with the impetus for creating a boutique development company out of it, just as like a bolt-on entrepreneurial product or project rather that we could do together. So we turned an old brownstone, 4 floors, so 4 units, into 4 separate condominium units within a year's time.
Wow.
And we didn't just do that cookie cutter thing that everyone around town was doing. We designed each unit independently. My father, being in the import-export industry at the time, had, and still to this day has, deep ties to Italy. We imported our kitchens from Italy, beautiful lacquer cabinets, stainless steel countertops. And, we went and picked out all the different tiles. And instead of doing like just the bath area, like fully tiled baths and et cetera, all to say that like these units disappeared in a week. And we're like, oh, well, maybe we have a business here. Yeah. So you fast forward 12 years and we were in it. I think I've renovated and reimagined something like 400,000 or 500,000 square feet of space within the core of Jersey City and Hoboken, New Jersey. Those going, again, the European roots to Italy. Like, I have a deep appreciation for old things, and we don't really have old things in this country, but I found the oldest stuff I could here on the East Coast and we work in it. I'm sitting in a Firehouse that was built in 1896. That's my home. Prior to this, my dad and I, the last project we did together with our development company was the original New York, New Jersey Bell telephone switching station. So where all the operators sat and plugged you into your neighbor. I mean, these floors, Mary Beth, 3-foot thick concrete. I know that because we had to drill 168 different holes for all the plumbing and wires so, like just figuring out how to take apart and reassemble these old buildings, respecting their history, i.e. their facade, and then bringing in all these cool, new, modern design elements to the interior. I really found that kind of juxtaposition, that old meets new, is really my style and my voice. With tripping into television, which we'll get into here now, I really learned how to design in any style, meaning whatever the client wants is what I want to do my best to deliver on. I don't do this with a lot of ego. It's not like I'm not designing portfolio pieces. I'm designing your home. So let's get it the way you want. So tripping into TV, man, I feel like I'm rambling here. Should I just keep going?
You're good. I mean, I think I do have one question just before we finish up on moving into this. It sounds like your dad and his entrepreneurial spirit and work really impacted the way that you saw how you wanted to have a career or maybe have a family life and a career at the same time. So I'm just curious. I think about this a lot, actually, because I'm an entrepreneur. My family there's 7 of us. And out of the 7, 5 are entrepreneurs. My parents are entrepreneurs. And I think a lot about like, what did they do to make us all want to do our own thing? I was just curious if you had a take on this. Like, is there a specific character that they built into and how they did that made you go like, oh, I can also do kind of whatever I want?
I think it goes back to that first thing I said was that, when I played sports in high school, my dad was at every game. He didn't miss anything. So the idea that, I kind of grew up not wanting for anything, my parents provided for us, and he was always present, I was like, well, there's something here. And I think that's really the biggest takeaway. And now that I've got a 2.5-year-old, I walk her to school every morning. We go to the park in the afternoons. Like, I change my schedule around so we can do fun stuff together because there are things I don't want to miss. And I guess if there was something to add to that from more the business side of things, maybe not even the business side of things, just the lifestyle thing. Like, my dad was in import-export, and that was loudspeaker components at the time. He was always traveling to Italy and having meetings over there, and, you go for 10. And so when I was in the 2nd grade, I think, he pulled me out of school for 10 days and I got a different education, and I flew over to Italy with him in my sport coat and slacks and, sat in on meetings and went to dinners and learned how to drink grappa. Well, maybe that wasn't in the 2nd grade, but I got there eventually. I think it was just, it was super cool. It was just different. Like it wasn't a 9 to 5. And the thing I learned about myself pretty early on is that like every day needs to be different for me to stay engaged. I cannot stamp out the same thing. I mean, you deal with different problems every day. You don't know what a customer is going to say when they call or what their request is, or, what email Anthony's going to send with some far-fetched idea that you guys always take the time to respond to. So, I think there's a lot of that too. Like it was just super different and you could kind of make it your own thing.
Okay, so then you were going to go into TV. How the heck did you get into TV and then be there for a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a decade plus. It definitely dovetails right into the development business. So, this little thing called 2008 happened. I think there's a real estate bubble that I'm sure we all still have PTSD from. I know I do. It just so happened that we had the biggest project to date as a company going on, just coming to a close. Matter of fact, we cut the ribbon for 22 condo units, 14 parking spaces, and a commercial space the day that Lehman Brothers went out of business.
Oh, gosh.
We had a $7 million loan out. So like I always say, this whole left side of my beard is dedicated to 2008, the gray, and then this is all TV. I learned what a sleepless night was. I mean, I took that responsibility very seriously. Like that my dad signed his name to guarantee that loan. Like there was I guess we try again. No, we had to figure it out. So selling through that market was effing brutal, basically impossible to put to words. But we got creative. There was a local artist in town and we would hang his art in different units and kind of do art shows to get people to start walking through the building. We, get a booze sponsor or a food sponsor, partnering with different people, just anything we could think of to make it interesting to move these units. And while we were doing that, we had a friend of ours, say to us, like, you guys are so passionate about what you do. You should have a TV series. And we're like, yeah, because, they're handing those out. And when I say we, I'm referencing my cousin, John Colinari, who was my cousin in the Kitchen Cousins title of it all. And who worked for my father and I, at the time. A couple days after the open house, a friend calls us up, was like, look, can I like just shoot some video? You guys, follow you around for a day or two. Like, we'll just follow what you're doing. And then I'll get a couple little interview things and see what happens. We're like, sure. You want to waste your time? Like, go for it, And the long and the short of it is she blindly called a production company and they kind of liked what they saw. So a couple weeks later, they sent out a crew to kind of shoot it more how it needed to be shot in order to get a network interested. 9 months goes by, radio silence, hear absolutely nothing. It's like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. John and I are sitting in the office late one night, just, trying to keep up with everything. And phone rings, he answers it. And he's like, it's that guy from the production company. Like, he wants to know if we can build a kitchen in 3 weeks. I was like, whatever he says, just say yes. Like, we will figure it out. Like, just say yes. That's verbatim the conversation that went on. So they were like, all right, well, HGTV wants to make a pilot with you. And we were like, whoa, okay. Cool. No idea what this means. So we then, the next set of meetings was one, we meet a network executive from HGTV and they introduce us to a showrunner because the production company who brought the show to the network, the little inside baseball here, I don't know how interesting it is to people or not, but because the production company who brought the show to the network had never made a show for that network before, the network installed what's known as a showrunner, who is somebody that has a track record they're confident in and says, look, production company, you're getting paid, you're getting your money. But until we know how you work and we know you can deliver, this guy is going to be the guy on set who makes sure all this stuff happens. So that person was this guy, Nick Panagopoulos, who's a dear, like he's like a brother to this day. Like we talk every week, we hang out all the time. He made the build with me. He made all our shows with HGTV. But we basically sat with him and bullshit for a while and got comfortable and, whatever. And Then a couple weeks later, we show up to make this show, and John and I get out of the van and we're white as ghosts. And Nick is like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, I realized in all the conversations we had, nobody told us what the hell we're supposed to be doing, like with the cameras and the thing. He goes, "All right, look, take it easy." He goes, "You know your business?" I said, "Yeah, I know my." Yes. He goes, "You do what you do. We will do what we do. We're here to make you look good. Like, this is not a gotcha show. We'll run the cameras. We'll adjust as we go along, but treat these people as any client you." And to this day, best single piece of advice I ever got. For some reason, some switch flipped, and I was able to just do exactly that, which he said. And I don't know, it just clicked. And as Nick tells it to John and I, he sent 4 minutes of Demolition Day footage to the network, and they bought a whole season. And then halfway through the first season, they greenlit a second season. And then it kind of just kept rolling like that. We wound up doing, I think it was 4 titles: Kitchen Cousins, Cousins on Call, Cousins Undercover, and America's Most Desperate Kitchens, all for HGTV. And between those shows and guest appearances on different Food Network shows, and like we did a joint episode with Restaurant Impossible. We did a whole bunch of stuff with Ellen DeGeneres Show, Rachel Ray. We were guest judges with Beat Bobby Flay, like 250 plus episodes of TV.
So you started with no experience in television to superstar, doing all these things. And now, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you loved it enough to keep doing it. Right? For a while.
It's very much a duality. Like, the people who are in the field are awesome. You can't say that about everybody on the network side of things. There are great network executives. There are no blanket statements here. Just like there are great people in design and contracting, and there are shitty people in design and contracting. I think just the level of bureaucracy on the network side started to get pretty frustrating. And that is where the build was kind of born. Like, I was always pitching, let's do more educational stuff. Like, we don't have to get rid of the fun. We don't have to get rid of the pretty pictures, but like, there's hours of me like explaining installing a light switch or a backsplash or a design decision that are on the cutting room floor, so to speak, that never make it to the episodes, but that would only help people make their decisions or understand like a little bit more of the why behind what we're doing and the decisions we're making. And it kind of never went anywhere. So, one year I just decided, well, let me go talk to all these brands I've gotten to know and, have a really healthy working relationship with. They're all brands that I want in my own house. Like, if they're willing to help support me, then I can make a series that, not only educates homeowners, but is beneficial to these brands as well, because they're able to get visibility, and it's authentic in that I'm using these things in my own home. So there is a real connection between me, the product, and the company. And that's kind of how the build became to be.
You started, working with your dad, developing things, and all of a sudden you're in TV, designing kitchens in a world where a lot of the things are being cut, a lot of the process is being cut. Somewhere in the midst of that, like, you didn't go to school for design, but you became a designer. So I guess my question is around, there are a lot of self-taught or designers out there who get there via this non-traditional path. I feel like we have a lot of those on the Materio platform. At what point did you own the fact of like, I'm a designer, I'm a contractor? Like, did you ever?
That's a great question.
I mean, I just like, it just happens, right? But was there a conscious like, oh, I have to start recognizing myself as this?
Yeah, there was very much a catalyst moment for me. And I remember it because I'm still super proud of it. It was like 2007, 2008, right around the same time so it was that big project. The New York Times real estate section came and did a piece on the redevelopment and adaptive reuse of this warehouse, because the warehouse was 2 stories and then we added 2 modern stories on top of the warehouse. So, we really respected the original envelope of the building, and then we kind of set back, tilted up, and you've got this brick original facade down here, and then this metal Alucobond panel kind of structure on top, and the old and the new meet. And then the interior very much spoke to the exterior. So, we did this interview with the New York Times, not really thinking anything of it. And then when it came out, it was like, you were reading it, you're like, wait, this is about us. Like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And then when we finished that building, the Jersey City Landmarks Conservancy, which is a group of volunteer organization in the city that looks at various historic restoration projects, invited us to their gala that year and presented us with the Adaptive Reuse Prize, which was the first one that they had handed out, and is one that they continue to this day. Those two things were huge validating moments in me, like truly seeing myself as a designer.
Yeah.
And then, once television happens, you no longer like continue to question yourself, even after those two pieces of early validation, you still have that imposter syndrome. You're still unsure about things. Once television hits, and it's not getting the television show, like that would be just the ego of it all. But once that show went out to the world, and you've sat there holding your breath, like wondering what the reaction is going to be, and you start to get this positive feedback coming in, you're like, wow, like this is incredible. So television was something I didn't know I would love as much as I did, but I never wanted to be on television for television's sake, for fame's sake. Being able to be recognized for something I'm very proud of and be able to share it with that many people, that was always the coolest part of it to me.
It's just easy to second guess yourself when you enter, into a world that you weren't in before, or you're doing something. So it sounds like, for you, the way to overcome that was just like some really legitimate validation that you had done something really awesome in the industry.
Well, and you have to realize too, like you have parents that are entrepreneurs. When you work with your parents, that imposter syndrome is even worse, because it's like, am I here because it's my parents, my dad, so like having an outside source, like want to come and interview you and then write the article that they write with you having zero input.
Yeah.
That outside, like unbiased validation is really powerful stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And, my early beginnings in design is like moving furniture around the room in the third grade with my mom when I came home from school, and she's like, come on, let's get this done before your dad gets home, So like, that's where it all started for me. And my mom is like super visual and super talented. I know the business was with my father, but I think my creative side really comes from my mom.
Today's episode is brought to you by Materio. Materio is an all-in-one project management system made for interior designers and design build firms to operationalize your projects. And whether you heard it in this episode or somewhere else, Materio is going to be the place to streamline communication, manage your selections, and make sure that you can hand off documents and deliverables all to your contractors and your trades. To learn more about Materio, you can visit www.materio.co or check us out on Instagram at materio.co. All right, we're going to dive into brand, because I feel like you have a very strong personal brand. You obviously have, crafted that, I think, along the way. I'm just wondering if you made any intentional choices as you've evolved your brand over time, or if it just kind of happened. Just
one. There's only one choice, and that was always uncompromisingly to be myself. When I have to fake it, it doesn't work. There is one time I was asked to do that for television, and I cannot even express how pissed I was. The network was trying to inject more Bravo into HGTV, I guess is the best way I could put it. So these network executives fly to Maryland, where we are in like this 12-degree build. We redid the entire exterior of this house. It was the only job we ever had that not a single scrap of wood hit the dumpster. Everything was in a burn barrel. Like, we were freezing our asses off. It was a joint episode with the Ellen DeGeneres show. We were rebuilding the entire home in 4 days for an Army vet. Came out unbelievable. John and I collaborated on everything, and we have very similar tastes. So there is not like we're not doing this. And even if we have different ideas, one of the two of us always realized like, oh, that's a better idea. So either John would be like, no, let's do it that way. Or I'd be like, oh, that's it. That's the idea. Like, let's go with that. So we came to the conclusion that we wanted to paint this house black. It had like some really great like roof lines, and we're integrating some cedar with it. So like the warm tones of the cedar, and then that really cold, dark black against all this great nature setting that the property that it was on. So, this network executive gets out of their warm car and is like, okay, Anthony, like, you don't like the color of the house. I'm like, oh yeah, I do. I'm like, we just chose the color together. They're like, no, like, you don't like that. I'm like, oh no, we're not, I don't play that way. Like, that's not what I do. And they're like, well, you're going to do it. I'm like, no. They're like, yeah, you're going to, I'm like, okay, let's do it. So John's like, hey, Aunt, like, they're like, roll cameras, whatever. They're like, hey, Aunt, like, I think I want to paint the house black. I was like, this is literally the way I did it. I was like, oh, John, no, I don't like that. Don't do it that way. And like, then it started getting real heated, and they're like, look, you have to do this. Like,
oh my goodness.
Contract stuff, blah, blah, blah. So whatever, I sold it the best I could, but it felt super, super cringy and super shitty. I've just always been me. Like I have friends 20 years. They're like, how is it that like on TV, like I feel like you're in the room talking to me, like you don't change at all. I'm like, I don't know. And I always go back to that piece of advice that Nick got me that I mentioned earlier. I am who I am. And I think when I stick with that, like it just works. Because I think about this a lot. Like, I don't believe that everybody is meant to design for everybody else. Like, I feel like it's very much a conversation. And like, if you get on a good vibe with somebody, that's a project you're going to have fun on / be successful with / make money on. When you get into like an initial meeting and it's like feeling combative or just like, it feels off. Like, those are jobs I don't want. I either say I'm busy or I'm booked or I have a conflict or I don't think this is a good fit. I mean, I've figured out a polite way to say that many a time. But I think as a designer, like if you can be yourself, it doesn't mean that every decision you make or design element you propose is going to be a yes from the client. It just means that they're open to that conversation, and there's a real easy level of communication. I don't know. I've just found that like that's been the basis for a lot of the success that I've found, being a solo entrepreneur here.
Yeah. How do you feel like if someone's listening to this and they are not as established as you and maybe don't have the confidence to say no? Imagine you're in your early years and you're not in television and you're having to take on clients. Like, what advice would you give them in knowing that the client is potentially the wrong client and it's better to just walk away and the better project will come? Yeah,
it's the hardest thing to do. There's nothing I hate more than when like people are giving advice and it just sounds like it's so easy and duh, and you should do this. I said yes to the wrong project more than once.
Or maybe how did you know when you said, like, what were the failures that came out of those?
I think you have to say yes to the wrong project at least once to understand that it should have been a no. I don't know that this is one that you learn. Like, I think this is the stove is hot kind of thing with the kid. Like, they got to touch the stove. You might have to touch the stove on this one. It's learned from experience. I think I probably did it twice because I don't think I had the confidence yet. And I wasn't learning lessons as well as I should have been. But like now, after the second bad one, it was a real bad one. And you also grow a lot through that, right? You have to get to the end of the project. So it teaches you a whole bunch of other skills that you learn. I guess my advice would be take the project you shouldn't take early. Like, learn these lessons early. Don't wait until later on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. The earlier you can learn something is wrong, that's better for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Going back to sort of brand, and I feel like one of the things I've always enjoyed about you is kind of what you just said. Like, you're always yourself. I've talked to you, I don't know how many times at this point. I mean, I remember the first email that you ever sent Materio. We didn't know you. And I was like, this guy is amazing. Like, I just felt like, you didn't take the time to craft some, email. It was very like genuine. And so I love that.
I try and write the way I talk.
I do that too, and I get in trouble for it because I don't always speak that well, but I like it. I like the approach. I think too, well, this is a tangent, but I think that at Materio, we don't have it well defined, but I'm always looking at the emails that go out from anybody and they're like, how can we make this more friendly? How can we make this more human? Like, we're humans.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the word human. Like that's it. It's not that I purposely want to have bad grammar or anything else. It's like, I don't know you. I am trying to convey to you who I am through a screen with a typed word. You don't get to see me. You don't even know what I look like because this is my first, you've never interacted with me. There's a time and place for proper and really buttoned up. Those are few and far between for me. And that's by design. Like, I want to work. It goes right back to the last bit of our conversation here. I want to work with people who read an email like I wrote and they're like, oh man, this guy's super passionate about what we're doing. And, if I can get you to crack a smile or laugh or, write something stupid, I tend to curse in my emails. Like, I want you to know who I am. Like, I curse too much in front of my daughter. Like, I don't do it on purpose. It's the way I talk. I don't know. Maybe I've been in the construction industry too long. Who knows? But
has she said her first curse word yet?
One slipped out. She did not know what it was. So JC and I, my wife, JC and I, just turned and laughed into pillows or arms or whatever the hell we had.
Cannot react.
Oh my God. But no, it's not. It doesn't.
That's awesome.
And I've gotten a lot better at that. I have made some adjustments.
You have to adjust when you have kids.
Totally.
Okay. So I feel like you really value the partnerships you have. I love that you are ambassadors of certain projects, not brands, not just affiliates. I think that the way that you communicate that on your website is very clear. So as someone who has this career and probably has brands approaching you often, to partner or do something, how do you determine, kind of like the clients, how do you determine that brand is a good fit for you, and how might other designers kind of take away something from your method?
So, it's so funny. It's a great question. Two, the first brand opportunity I was ever brought by an agent that, to be clear, I no longer work with, was for stick-on countertops. Yes, stick-on countertop.
Okay.
And let's rewind a little bit. It's 2008. I mean, we're getting crushed on this project, the $7 million loan, the gray beard, TV money isn't really hitting yet. So this is a 6-figure, endorsement opportunity. And I said no as fast as I heard the words come out of his mouth, because your reputation is as good as the last thing you've done. So you have to have a level of consistency and a level of quality in your work or the things you put out or put your name behind that people expect. I have 25 years in this business. I'm going to recommend stick-on countertops for a quick buck. And I needed that buck at that point. But I knew that I could not redeem my reputation had I put my name behind that thing. So I guess in short, most of the brands I work with, I reach out to first. That said, my agent now, who I've been with a very long time, is somebody who knows me very well. The guy was at my wedding. It's a personal relationship as much as of a business. So he if he's going to approach a brand, he already knows that I'm interested in it, or he'll run something by me before, he's like, oh, so-and-so has a campaign. Are you comfortable? Yeah. That would be cool. And then he would pitch me for something like that. So it just goes back to that stupid overused word of authenticity. Would you use it? If it's in my house, I have no problem. Kohler's a perfect example. I'm a huge fan of Kohler. I use those products before I was ever on television in all my development projects. I use them in my own home. So I'm happy to, work with them, whether we're talking about their power side and their generators or their plumbing fixtures. So it's just is it a quality product? Does it make sense? Do you use it? I mean, anybody who's trying to break into that space, I know social media is flooded. But reaching out in the DMs is great, because any brand who has a good social media manager is engaged. It means they're reading everything. Doesn't mean you're always going to get a response, but It's somebody who is in charge of promoting that product. They may not be a final decision maker, but if you write a well thought out DM, like the chances of getting a response and like at least getting an introduction to be able to do something, I think is quite a bit higher than like trying to cold email somebody or, take the more traditional approach.
Yeah. I like to think that traditions have gone out the window when it comes to like business sometimes. Personally, as a brand ourselves, like I think we resonate with, again, being human, not being so perfect, genuinely being excited about something goes a long way. At least that's kind of, I think, I feel like we're aligned in that. Okay. Are you ready to like nerd out a little bit on process?
Yeah, let's go.
I kind of assume that you're like a one-man show, but I want to know, just to set a baseline for process, like team structure. Have you ever hired anyone full-time? Just you? Yeah.
I mean, when we had the development company, we had a project manager, an office manager. That kind of wound down as, my dad's 76 now. But it was like, I was all over the country for television. You need to be present if you're going to be running a development business. So the idea that I could run a design and project management business where I would work with various contractors who were on site all the time allowed me the ability to like stay in the field that I love while still being on television, not just pretending to be a designer, but actually, still working in my chosen field. When I had that larger business that was rooted here in New Jersey, there were employees. I consciously made the decision that I did not want to have employees. So I would adjust my workload accordingly. Because when you come into that 2008 real estate bubble timeframe and like you have to lay somebody off or you're wondering where you're going to get the money for their paycheck, it is stressful as all hell. Like, it's one thing for you not to eat, but like you got to put food on somebody else's table. The responsibility is a heavy one. And I guess it's that coupled with I've got a little bit of the OCD control freak. Like I'd rather just do it. And when you talk about not wanting any day to be the same, like I love sitting with my chief architect and drawing. I love, getting all my stuff into Materio and like working through my budgets and design selections. I love getting out in the field. So again, I'd rather do less projects and focus more on them, really make sure my client has an incredible experience and just take it forward as a one-man show.
Yeah, I love that. Do you ever find, as far as like drawing, being in Jersey, I don't know if you're working in New York City. I know on the Firehouse project, I was watching some of the Build TV, you're working with an architect, you're getting things stamped and approved. Do you work with architects when you're doing anything that requires approvals in a city like that? I
have a couple of projects in New Jersey right now, and I have a couple of projects in Florida. Doing a condo in Aventura, 2 houses in Coconut Grove. And then I've got 2 restaurant projects going on in New Jersey. And I kind of split like 50-50 between restaurants and residential. I don't know how exactly that happened, but I love it because the restaurants really let you stretch your legs and do some fun, funky, cool stuff. And then, helping clients like realize their vision / keep their anxiety down through the process is really fun. So I enjoy like this psychology, client interaction. Here's what to expect at the building department. Here's how long this is going to take. This is normal, blah, blah, blah of it all, as much as I enjoy the design aspects of it.
I could see that. Do you feel like, well, I guess as a one-man show who's running this whole thing, you're splitting your time between 2 different states and project types. I feel like you're a systems person. You're very technologically savvy. You're very, you've got Matterport, chief architect, Materio, Notability.
The only one I would add there is Todoist.
Todoist. I was going to say, I know I've heard that one from you before. Yep. So like, how are you using those systems together to their max to be able to do this by yourself? Yeah.
So first I would say those are the 2 states I'm working in right now, but I work coast to coast, anywhere. And these systems are exactly what allows me to do that. So one, you take an early site visit, you've got the client signed up. I bring my Matterport with me. So I have a Pro 3, which is a distinction to be made because number one, it's got great LiDAR. So you're getting scale accurate scanning. And number 2, that Pro 3 as opposed to the Pro 2 can shoot outdoors.
Oh, wow.
Where like the restaurant in New Jersey is a perfect example. Like there's a huge patio area. So the first thing I do after my initial site meeting is over and I've taken notes in Todoist, is I scan the entire space. If there's outside space, because it's the Pro 3, I can scan outside. So what that does for me is, you're 3,000 miles away. If I've missed a measurement, if I wasn't thinking about something, matter of fact, I don't even need to take measurements on site anymore because I've worked with the Matterport platform for so long. I know that it's scale accurate.
Right.
So I just have everything. So I've got 2 screens here. I've got my laptop, which I'm looking at in the camera. And then I've got a nice big 37-inch where I've got my chief architect open. So my process is I take my scan when I get home. I order a CAD right from Matterport, and then that allows me to import right into Chief Architect. So I don't even have to draw my existing conditions. Those are imported. Right. I then save that existing conditions plan, and then I begin designing. So I'll have the Matterport 3D model up on my laptop, Chief Architect on my big screen. And if I'm like, oh, is there a window there? Is there a column? I'm missing something. I have got that reference. So it's like I'm at I don't care if that project was 3 blocks away or down in Florida, like you have the digital twin of that thing right there. Right. And for me to stay in that like design flow and not have to get up and just be able to go screen to screen, I find it like, 1, like really efficient, and 2, like it keeps my creativity going, because like as I'm drawing something or I have a really cool idea, I can then, bring up the model, put myself digitally in the model in the same space I am in the plan, and like kind of just look at it from a perspective, standpoint, and try and really work through that. It works phenomenally well. So those 2 things combined with Materio allows me to be anywhere, because we all know how your platform works. Like I can send selections off to the client, whether it's all the selections or just electrical or just the bathroom or whatever it is that I want them to focus on. And what I'll do a lot of times is I'll do a loom. That's the other thing that I would add to my workflow.
Loom. Yes.
You and I love our looms.
I love loom.
And I think actually it was after watching your looms on the website that I like signed up for a pro account. And I'm like, this is just a great way to do this. Like, why don't I just do this all the time?
I think it's my favorite company in the whole world.
Yeah.
They're so good.
I take it for granted a lot that I know these different platforms. Like Materio could not be easier to use, but like there's a lot to it. This is some powerful software. So what I'll generally do is like cruise through my plan set, my Materio overlays, the different selections, and I'll loom that and I'll send it to my clients so they can get a flavor for how all of this stuff works and comes together. And then as they're reviewing things and approving or denying selections, they've got a better understanding of the Materio platform as a whole. I've really started using the timeline feature inside of Materio a lot more. Like I used to use a separate Gantt chart software, but I think that the progress Thomas is making there is great. And the more I can reduce client-facing platforms, the better, because I don't have to ask them to constantly. So like I share the Matterport 3D model with them just because it's cool and they can cruise around in it, and it's great. But Materio is like something that they work with, interact with. The developer that I work with in Florida in Coconut Grove. I mean, the first time I sent him an invite, I was like, hey, Justin, like, I want your feedback here. Like, I'm just starting to use this platform. Within a week, he's like, this is awesome. He's like, I wish more people use this. Like, this is incredible.
I just want to step back to Chief Architect and Matterport, because I think we get a lot of questions around, is Materio going to be a drawing software? And my answer is always no, we're not in the near future. That's not what we're trying to solve. It shouldn't be, right? So we get a lot of people asking, what drawing software do you recommend? And I have experienced Chief Architect. I think it's amazing. I'm curious if you could just elaborate on what you're doing in Chief. Like, are you trying to create elevations? Are you actually moving walls? Like the people out there asking, what drawing software should I use? Why would you recommend that one? Yeah.
So for me, as a self-taught designer, and then somebody who taught themselves how to use Chief Architect, and I will say up front, I have since gone to their education classes, which I can get into. It's the best software that I have used from a drawing perspective. When you start out and you don't know the power of Chief Architect, you can still make progress. You can still draw something meaningful and represent the things you need to represent. They have an incredible knowledge base online. Similar to the way you guys put out looms, they've got a library of recorded videos of tutorials on how to do a swimming pool, how to do a double height ceiling, how to do this, how to do that. So, and their search on their website works really well. So I'm drawing something in Chief. I don't know how to accomplish it. I go to chiefarchitect.com. I put in the search terms. There's either a video that pops up or they have Chief Talk, which is their user forums. And there's a back and forth thread from like some expert user and, somebody that was at my level. So it was really easy to self-teach in that regard. So the first 6 months I used Chief, I just did that. I find that when I'm trying to learn something, I need to have a vested interest in the thing that I'm doing. So for example, when I started with Chief, I drew the apartment I was living in at the time. And it was this cool loft and it had some funky stuff. Like it had big curved top windows. It had a loft inside with open space below. So, you had to figure out some complex issues, and it taught me because I really wanted a cool representation. And the other thing while I'm saying this, that's great about Chief is that as you draw your 2D plan, you're getting a 3D model. And then once you pop into that 3D model, you can start spraying materials on things. And then you learn, I could take this wallpaper from Hugin West and like import the material and then spray the actual wallpaper on the wall. And, you go down this rabbit hole and it's so much fun to like try and get the rendering as close to reality as possible. And that was a really fun experience. So after 6 months of that, I signed up for their intermediate kitchens and bath class, which they host every year at, they have their classes after the International Builder Show in Vegas, but they also do it after the JLE show, which is up in Rhode Island every year. So I took the train up and I went to the show, and then I went to 2 days of classes, and that like having that 6 months of self-teaching and then 2.5 focused days in a classroom with like some really great instructors, I felt super confident. And then just this past August, I actually went out to Coeur d'Alene in Idaho where they're based, and I took their advanced 1 class. And like advanced is like a whole bunch of efficiency tricks and tips and like some much more complex stuff. And I'm feeling like a superhero in there now. So it's great. I mean, I can draw full electrical drawings. I can draw plan set. You start with this very basic rudimentary understanding. You're teaching yourself. You're drawing 4 walls and a couple of square windows. And now I sent the developer Justin in Coconut Grove last week a 30-page design set, electrical locations, elevations, vanity designs, tile layouts, all the architectural lighting fixtures, some rendering stuff to help him realize a couple of the different kitchen things I wanted to do. And now, since he's seen what I give him, he's like, look, can you put this rendering out in a little bit more higher resolution? Like, I'm going to actually use this with clients. So it's another value add I'm giving to the client here. So I guess it's the very long way of saying you can start slow and the power is limitless. I mean, you can do full on framing plans. I don't, because I don't need to, but like at that advanced 1 class, I was able to see a little bit about how that works, and it's incredible. So right. That's I guess that's my pitch for Chief.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have a lot of customers who do use it, and I've heard so many great things. And so I knew you were a big fan and big user. So I wanted to get your perspective. Okay. I guess one thing I want to frame or question is like, I see that you call yourself also an owner's rep. And I don't think that a lot of the customers that I've spoken to that we have used that phrase. So what's the difference for you in being an owner's rep?
Yeah.
And versus the designer versus a project manager?
It's so funny. I get this question a lot, Mary Beth. I get this a lot.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't know that. So sorry, I have to answer it again.
No. It tells me that it's not as common a term as I thought it was. And it's really simple, actually. Owner's rep is basically just the commercial version of a project manager. So when I work with restaurant clients and I use the term owner's rep, they understand that quite a bit more. I'm working with a development firm. An owner's rep is the person that represents you, much like a project manager. But a project manager on the residential side can work for that general contractor, or you can have an independent. So an owner's rep is really an independent voice that's outside of the contractor, your GC's company, that is representing you, the homeowner, or you, the restaurateur. I think this is maybe just me and not a blanket statement, but the way I approach the owner's rep or project management work, like I don't always just take the side of my client. The way I see my role is a facilitator of progress in the project. So if a contractor brings a change order to a client and it's a valid change order, I tell that client, pump the brakes. This guy can't see through walls. He did a very thorough quote. This is the way it was supposed to be. But you can't expect that he's going to chip through a mile of bluestone because he didn't know this was under the ground, or that, whatever was hidden in the wall. And conversely, like when if the GC or tradesman tries to hand some bullshit change order, like I'm like, guys, this was in the contract. You're not getting paid on this. Like when it's time to get paid for an extra, you're going to get it. Like I'm going to make sure of that. But like, this is not that time. So like, we're having a problem with the schedule. Okay, let's sit down. Let's work through this. So where's your expectation? So it's the psychology part of it that I was talking about that I love. So owner's rep is, I think it's more of a commercial term, but the way I view it is like you are an independent third party. Yes, you're representing your client, but you're really trying to facilitate that project and like help that client understand when they should push back and when they should accept something. Yeah, that makes sense. You have to know everything, all the details, and be the person to kind of keep the sanity. It sounds like that's well said. Yeah, totally. Awesome. Okay. So one thing I'm curious about, you kind of touched on this when you mentioned like you wanted to learn Chief and you just did it on your own. As someone who is adopting a new process, or when you're adopting a new process, what are the typical steps you go through to decide, okay, I'm actually going to implement this? And then do you have any like formats that you follow? I never had a great process. And I think, honestly, it's because I didn't have the right things in place. So I was kind of always searching. So Chief Architect was the full stop for me on that, on the drawing side of things, because I knew I was not going to learn AutoCAD or Revit or something that complex. And these iPad apps, or these little, like what I call toy drawing apps, weren't getting it done. So once I found Chief Architect, I stopped looking. On the project management side, Jesus Christ, I tried to use Asana. I tried to use 4, 5, 6 different things that I'll remain nameless before I found Materio. And when I found you, I sat down that night and wrote you an email, and like, I just figured it out, because even not knowing how to use it, just watching your early looms, and like, I lost my mind. I must have sat in my office from like 8 to like 11, just like watching videos and like screwing around with the demo version, or, signed up for the free account or whatever. And so I guess I've been in the industry long enough, and I love tech and am immersed in tech enough to know when I know, which is not a great answer. Same thing with Matterport. Like I used a bunch of different, 3D scanning stuff, 360 cameras, they're just the best. So when you find it, like, I don't know how to know that it's not right, but like when I'm using something and I'm just feeling like this is not it, like I'm missing something, I'm always looking, and I drive myself friggin' crazy because I'm running like, 2 sets of the same project, 3 sets of the same project, trying to take information from one platform and import it into another platform. Does this work? No, it sucks. Well, I just wasted 3 hours getting all my information in there to figure out that this thing's terrible. But then when I do find it, I stop looking and I'm done. So, Materio is that, Matterport is that, Chief Architect is that. Awesome. To do us the notability, like I've tried, but Notability is I use mostly on my iPad. It's for infield plan markups with Apple Pencil. It's the cleanest, lightest weight PDF reader renderer, most stable kind of app I found. And I've been using it forever. I don't mean to diminish it, but it's not like an integral part of my process. It's like the best iPad app that also has a Mac app. So like getting your PDFs back and forth is real easy. And Todoist is similar in that regard. Like it's the lightest weight to do app that I can break down. Like I have my various projects. I've got all my AC/DC stuff. And then like I can still have like personal real estate projects, personal to-do lists, like it, but it's all in one app. And I can roll those up when it's, design and consulting time. And we're just focused on that. The alerts, the push notifications work. It's got the Apple Watch app, the iPhone app so that like kind of everywhere all at once, all the things like I like that. I'm a cloud guy all day long.
We talked a little bit about the Build TV. If you haven't already checked out Anthony's YouTube channel, you should. The Build TV, it's actually thebuild.tv is the website. And you can see his work renovating the Firehouse in Jersey City. And the Stone House is in the Catskills, correct?
It is.
They are both gorgeous and epic. And I actually love that you have the walkthrough of the Matterport of like slide down the fire pole, like just super cool.
Thanks.
So I love that. I think that proves too, just like how cool that is. So anyways, you started the Build TV to educate homeowners on your 4 Ps: planning, process, products, and project management. I think we get a little bit of why you might have done that, given, what you said about HGTV and just part of that process not being showcased. But I'm curious why you felt this was really necessary and why you went out and did an entire, series that you led and were part of and put your sweat and tears into.
Yeah. Don't forget the blood.
The blood, sweat and tears. I was like, I feel like there's definitely actually probably blood.
So when television hits, there's like, you kind of do this circuit, like you do the home shows and you get on stage and you talk to people there. And through that process, I really found a love for educating people and really realized more from those little speaking engagements than any television show. Because when you make a show, you're in a bubble. Like I have a camera in front of me. It feels like we're talking to you in your living room, but like I'm doing my work. But when you get out there and you're talking to real everyday people, and like John and I used to do more Q&A than presentation, because I would always start these talks with, look, we want this to be a conversation. We know what we're talking about up here. You can interrupt us at any point. Throw your hand up. You got a question. And it got so well known that people used to bring their architectural plans to these things. And we'd have like a meet and greet line and we'd be marking up plans with people.
Oh my gosh.
All of that to say that I really fell in love with the education, number one. And number two, saw how much of a need there was for it. Like people had questions, which begged the question to me, why the F wouldn't HGTV listen to me and like make an educational show? So I said to myself, let's give this a shot. Like I want to renovate this old firehouse to begin with. I would love to have it documented as a show for all the time, show Lenny and my daughter and all that good stuff. But I think it's a real opportunity to own your own content, which to me means be able to make the creative decisions you want to make and try and deliver the message you're going for here, the education/fun. And that was really the impetus for it. And as I put my deck together and started pitching all these brands, everybody was really into it. I like you mentioned, I appreciate you mentioned the website, thebuild.tv. I built out an entire microsite. So every brand has its own page. Every room in each of the renovations has its own page, because I understand that people process information and try to obtain information in different ways. So whether you love the living room and you wanted to jump right to a living room page and look at all the things, or you wanted to know what faucets and what Kohler stuff I chose through the house, you could go to the Kohler page. We had the 3D model page. And this also dovetails into a bit more of the process, because I don't only just shoot Matterports as the existing conditions and the final. I also shoot rough conditions. Now you've got a historic representation, digital twin of where every pipe and wire is in your walls. So 5 years from now, you want to do a little renovation, or you've got an issue, or you don't know where something is. I've got historic data for you. It was fun being able to show people the process. Like this building, for those that don't know, used to be my office. So it's one of the only structures I've ever renovated twice. So I had a 3D Matterport scan of the office. I had a 3D Matterport scan of the fully demoed wide open space, the rough, and then the finish. And I think, can't guarantee this, but I'm pretty sure Matterport is coming out with a time slider where you're going to be able to mash all these models together and then rewind time and fast forward time.
That's so cool.
Really cool. So you'll be able to see, how things were and how they are. So yeah, it was just really, the idea was, let's try and give people as much content around this project as possible and see what they gravitate towards. The videos, which is the proper television series, and the vlogs, which were just much more behind the scenes, rolling up your sleeves with me. The 3D models, the brand pages, the house pages, the photography, like what works for you guys? Like what, and I gave all this content to all these brands for their use in perpetuity. I didn't try and hamstring them. I didn't try and put, a whole bunch of usage terms and different things on this stuff, because I appreciated their support. So when it came around for doing season 2 of the build up in the Catskills, 100% of people said yes. Every brand that I worked with on season 1 came back, and we did that whole content process all over again. So I don't recommend it for the faint of heart. If it's something you're going to try, just understand you're going to grind yourself into dust. Yeah. I was also crazy enough to do season 2 backed up to my wedding, which was pretty nuts. We got engaged in season 1, and then in season 2, I had to get that house done, and we got married on that property. So not for the faint of heart.
At least your partner, your wife, was in on that.
Let's just say she knew who she was marrying, so she held her breath, and we got there.
She was like, "We'll make this happen. It'll get done. Anthony will do it." Okay, I was going to ask, what was the biggest lesson learned from the first one, the Firehouse project, that maybe significantly influenced how you approached the next one, the second season, and or just like future projects that you did? Like, what was the biggest thing you took away from it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was actually a lesson to work in working with my clients. So I have this bad habit of agreeing with my clients or doing the things that they want me to do for them, because you want to make them happy, because you want to get them comfortable, whatever the reason. And it may not be the right time, place. It may not be the right decision, period. So on the Firehouse on season 1, I was able to follow my process, the process I've always wanted to just execute. But I'd never done a project for myself. So now I'm documenting this thing. So I'm like, okay, well, this documentation means I'm holding myself accountable here. People are going to see this. So I got the 3 quotes from the different contractors. I sat down and recorded a 20-minute video. Well, when it got edited to 20 minutes, but an hour and a half long video of going through a Gantt chart with my GC and having all those conversations. So the Firehouse, if I remember correctly, I think it's 3,600 square feet inside the walls. I took it apart down to the brick walls that were put up in the 1890s and put it back together and moved in 5.5 months. So I know that I have a good process now.
Yeah.
And I am much less apologetic with clients when I tell them no or make a suggestion. They still want to do something a certain way. I illustrate what the potential pitfalls are and why I think it's the wrong way to go. 9 times out of 10, they listen now. And I think it had nothing to do with them to begin with. They didn't know what they didn't know. It was my inability to communicate that properly, so that they would listen or had a reason to listen. And I've gotten much better at that. So I think that was probably the single biggest takeaway from season 1 of the build for me. It was real confidence in my process.
Yeah. Proof that it works. That's very impressive that you actually did that in 5.5 months. I love just the vlogs and the deep dives and the fact that you put everything out there. I think it's like so transparent. It's very helpful. I think a lot of designers and even contractors are a little bit hesitant to lay it all out there because maybe they don't want to be wrong. Maybe they don't want to show the thing. Like I was thinking about you saying, I scanned all the interiors. Well, if you put a gas pipe in the wrong place and, whatever, you might not want to document that. So were there any moments where you were like, I can't believe I'm laying this all out there? Or I feel like maybe the industry side will be annoyed that I've put it all out there? Or have you just been like, it's needed, no questions asked?
I actually had a very different feeling than that. So juxtaposed to the talks that I used to give at these home shows to homeowners, I was also invited to speak at various trade organizations, National Hardwood Floors, professionals organizations. And I used to make a joke just to kind of loosen everybody up when we got up there. It's like, look, I know we were on HGTV and I just want to say, like, I'm sorry. Like, I know the disservice that network does to our industry, and the whole room would like start clapping like right off the bat. So I very much felt like this is stuff people need to understand. They have the complete homeowners. They have a very big misperception as to what this industry entails, what it entails to get from A to Z in a project. So maybe if I can show this, contractors who do have a harder time communicating or don't do it as well can say, hey, why don't you watch this series or listen to this podcast or share this information so that you understand that it doesn't happen overnight. You understand that contractors can give you quotes on what they can see and they don't see through walls. I recorded myself accepting a change order from my contractor and saying, well, they didn't know this was back here. I forgot it was back here from when I did the renovation 7 years ago. This is taking them 3 extra days to do whatever it is. They don't work for free. I don't work for free. So it was really about that. The scanning and showing what's that saying? Ask for an opinion, you get 10. I don't know.
Well, I hear more often than not, actually, what you're saying, which is HGTV and these shows that make it look like your house happens in 20 minutes and they show none of the struggle.
And it costs $300 to renovate,
it's just, you can just do this, quickly. Then it's just fake. It's just not how it works. And I think it actually builds a lot of distrust with the professionals in the industry, with client, like homeowners and the professional side. And I think one of the things we've been thinking a lot about is how that distrust makes projects longer, more expensive, confusing, and it makes everybody have a poor experience. I shouldn't say everybody, but it makes a lot of clients have a really poor experience when they go to renovate or do a build. And there is an expectation that needs to be set. So I think I love it. I think I also hear a lot of, it's a different context, but I hear the side of, maybe if you're not as honest and transparent, you're kind of more secretive about your process or how it works, which I agree actually can be a disservice because it doesn't show what your value is as the designer or as the contractor. So I see both sides, and I think that it's important. I think it's important that people know this. I just didn't know if you got any backlash or if you got like total appreciation from professionals.
I mean, YouTube is YouTube, so there's always going to be shitty comments somewhere. I'm sure we'll have them on the bottom of this.
Yes,
bottom of this episode. When I say I am who I am, I don't care. Like I know, in 25 years doing this, I know what I know. Okay, you don't like my personal style, you don't like the paint. I don't care. I chose this for me. I chose this for my family. Like, we made these decisions. This was about process and planning and that. It's an interesting industry because there really are 10 ways to do everything. I don't ever claim to be right. I claim to have a process, and this is my best practice. This isn't the best practice. This is what I've learned works for me, allows me to operate efficiently, help my clients, myself get through projects. And it is interesting when you're in an industry like that. Like, you can frame this bookcase behind me 15 different ways. Like, great. As long as one of those 15 ways is right, or all of those 15 ways are right, and nobody's cutting corners, I'm not I'm not going to tell you, you're right or wrong. It's just a different way to do it. And I'd like people to be more accepting of that. And I guess, just to dovetail off of that, like what you were saying about secretive process, I don't think that serves anybody. Like, information is out there. The internet's out there. AI coming the way it is. Like, give me a freaking break. Like, people are working with you because you give them a sense of confidence that you can execute on this project. And the reality is, no matter what process, I'm hired for the unknown. Talking specifically about the project management / owner's rep part of my business, like, I'm hired when the contractor brings a question to the homeowner and they're like, I don't know how to answer this. Like, I don't know what this is. That's something that can't be taught. That's experience. That's project after project after project after, 20 years of projects. So, if you're confident in your skills and you know what you're doing, I wouldn't be afraid of sharing information.
Yeah. More confidence.
Yeah.
More confidence for everyone, please. Okay. Last thing on the build, I just want to know, or the Build TV, what is your biggest learning from creating your own series?
It's a lot of work, but it's super rewarding. Not having to deal with network notes and having everything be so polished and edited. Like, I love the edited series we did, but I got more comments, more views, more conversation around the vlogs, the behind the scenes, the stuff I edited, with my mediocre skills, than anything. Let's not say if, let's say when there's a season 3. I just got to save some money and figure out the next property. There's some learnings there. And I think I would probably lean toward more of that, lack of editing and lack of polish than anything else. I think, being trying to give the most honest, holistic assessment I can, I think I bit off a little more than I could chew to do on my own. I wish I was a little heavier on takeaway information there. I think I could have been, but that's, all the reason to go back and give it another crack. And I've, like I said, with Nick, we're still really good friends. Like, I have conversations with him all the time, and I think I would bring him on in a more meaningful way. Not in the try and help me get this done and make sure it meets the budget, but bring him on in a meaningful way so I can really focus more on as much education as I possibly could.
I'm curious, when we think about the future of design and sort of, you've been in this industry a long time, are there any big directions that you see the industry heading in the next 5 years? I play a lot with AI because I like to stay current and want to know what's coming so you can make adjustments. I don't think this is an industry. I think at some point, maybe, you will be affected, but the next 5 years, I don't see AI touching the physical world like this, like the industry we're in, for a good long time. I have uploaded code books into ChatGPT and asked AI to find stuff in there. I've tried uploading a plan set and saying, is everything on this plan code compliant? It didn't know what to do with that yet. I'm curious for when, there are things I'm excited about in that regard. Trying to, take some more of the heavy lift, tedious crap off our plate. Yeah. But I mean, design is a feeling. Design is a vibe. The computer's not doing that, Yeah. One of the cooler things I've seen actually is Matterport. It's in beta, so I don't know if everybody has access to it. Maybe I put out a little video or something, but they've got the ability now to remove instantly all of the furniture that's in your scanned space. Oh, wow.
I haven't had enough time to really play with it. I gotta reprocess one of my models, but I did it on a smaller model, and you push a button and the model still looks perfect, but all the furniture vanishes. So being able to remove distractions from the space and allow you to just see the space, I think is interesting. I haven't really been thinking a lot about the industry changing so much. If anything, look, we're whatever it is, between 3 and 5 million housing units short in this country. I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
This has been so awesome to just get to talk to you and hear more about your story. And I love talking to you. So thank you for joining me. And I'm excited to get this out into the world and let people hear more about your enthusiasm and transparency and education abilities and design. So
yeah, ditto. Thank you for the time. And, shout out to the whole Materio team. Like, you guys rock. You make my life a hell of a lot easier. There's no way I could get done what I do without Materio in squarely up front in my workflow. It's pretty incredible. So keep all that cool stuff coming. Keep all those well-considered features coming. And thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Designing Tomorrow. This podcast is brought to you by Materio. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, like, and leave us a comment below about what you thought.